EX2 Digital Hazard is here, and with it comes a brand new collection of cards to add to the card pool for the Digimon TCG. Let's talk about the must-haves. We'll talk about this in a second, but first I want to talk about the red cards released, starting with Gallantmon. Obviously, EX2 Digital Hazard is themed after the Digimon Tamers anime arc. One of the fan favorites and one of the main protagonists is, of course, Takato and his partner Gyumon. This is the epitome of that evolution line. This one has a collection of effects. Firstly, it gains 2000 DP during your turn. During your turn, while you have a red tamer in play, you can add 2000 DP to the threshold or maximum DP you can choose with DP-based deletion effects. Very complicated, but I promise it makes sense. And it kind of pays homage to what we've seen in past Gallantmon archetypes, being able to delete Digimon of specific DP values and then gain some kind of bonus because of that. And then also he has a when attacking effect. Choose any number of your opponent's Digimon whose total DP adds up to 6,000 or less and delete them. Obviously, if you have a red tamer in play, that becomes 8,000 DP and delete them. Really interesting card. My personal favorite part about it is the fact that it gains DP. For red decks, specifically red decks that can play Royal Knight based Digimon, having extra DP is definitely a good thing. We'll talk more about why later. If you plan on playing Gallantmon in EX2 format, I promise you're going to want this card as well as the other support cards released in this set. Like the next card, Magidramon, who is a red and purple SR that basically is an extra version of Gallantmon because it has the effect that says this card is considered Chaos Gallantmon at all times, meaning if you have Gallantmon based effects, it affects Magidramon as well. On top of that, it has a very similar effect to the one we saw in set 5 that supported Gallantmons by being deleted, also having extra ways to mill cards. This one, however, lets you play Takato and Gyumon instead of a Gallantmon, but thanks to the starter deck 7 Gyumon, you may as well be playing a Gallantmon if your opponent has a level 6 in play, and thanks to the brand new Takato, there can be some pretty nice combos associated with that kind of play. I think this card is interesting, and the main purpose it serves is kind of the bridge between a purple-red hybrid deck, which could be super cool. Imagine having all the Gallantmons in your deck and a card like Magidramon holding it all together. But in terms of being absolutely needed, it definitely is not. Moving on to the blue cards, which honestly got a bad rap in this set, we have the only SR in Leomon. I honestly can't remember the last time we got a level 4 as an SR in a Digimon set, but here we are. It's Leomon, the guy that died for our sins and did nothing else. And that's exactly what this card does. Opponent's turn, while you have a tamer in play, this Digimon gains blocker. If you're trying to attack your kid, Leomon's gonna step in first. Sorry, fam. And then on deletion, it has a very similar effect to the original Leomon from set 1 to gain 2 memory and draw 1 card. I'm not sure if Leomon Toolbox is actually going to be a deck, but there are cards in here that supports that type of strategy. Maybe playing it alongside some kind of like blue hybrid level 4 rush engine could be cool, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Moving on, we have the yellow cards in this set, focusing around the Renamon line, and it's very option card focused, specifically 2 cost options or higher. The main star is the SR Sakuyamon that has the win Digivolving effect to unsuspend one of your Digimon for each tamer you have in play. Really nice for getting some powerful attack turns. Can combo pretty interesting with other yellow cards we have already, and you can return an option card with plugin in its name from your trash to your hand. Those cards got released in this set, and there will be more plugins coming out in future releases. On top of that, we have a your turn effect that says when you use an option card with a cost of 2 or more, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3,000 DP for the turn. Classic yellow shenanigans. Now, in terms of right now competitive viability, I don't know how much there is for a pure Sakuyamon deck. However, Sakuyamon as a card is really valuable. Being able to like restand an entire board in various yellow decks could be really strong. Imagine playing it as one of your boss monsters in yellow hybrid, and all the hybrids that lived during your turn of attacks can just attack again. Imagine playing it in Lord Nightmon, and your Lord Nightmon can restand. God forbid you have 3 memory and can do it for free. There's a lot of cool things that can happen with this card, and in the future we will get a card called Sakuyamon Maiden Mode, which allows you to play all the other Sakuyamons that have already existed in kind of like a toolbox fashion, and again can be really good in yellow hybrid based strategies. So while I don't think this will have any immediate huge impact on the meta, I think picking up this card could be really important. Also, it is Sakuyamon, and I love the yellow color, so I'm picking up 4 no matter what. Up next, we have my biggest letdown from this set, the green Terriermon / Gargomon support cards. They're all revolving around making evolution costs cheaper and then punishing your opponent for having suspended Digimon, and the big boss is Mega Gargomon himself. And this Mega Gargomon is neat, but I'm not sure how actually impactful it is. He has a couple of effects. When Digivolving, for each green tamer you have in play, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. They don't unsuspend during your opponent's next unsuspend phase. That is a really great effect. This kind of offsets his higher Digivolution cost, because if you're ending your turn by evolving into this guy, but your opponent's Digimon can't attack anyway, there really is no downside. On the following turn, you can use his when attacking effect once per turn to return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon to its owner's hand. Key point, it does not say printed, so you can always make him higher and get rid of almost anything as long as you could interact with it, and that's a really powerful source of removal. Again, it's not permanent because you're bouncing to hand, but it's better than nothing. Obviously, people love Terriermon, people love jamming him whenever possible. The fact that Golden Rapidmon exists validates any deck that can play 12 copies of Terriermon, so this could see some play, but whether or not it's actually needed for all the green players out there has yet to be seen by me. Low-key, Shivamon might be better than this, and that's kind of sad to say out loud. Moving on, we have, I think, the resident sleeper of this set, and that is the black cards released. First things first, we have more machines and cyborgs. Yay to all the Machinedramon players out there, but the main thing being supported is my main man, Justymon Blitz Arm. Let's be honest, the actual card being supported is Cyberdramon, but he's not a Mega, so Justymon gets the SR slot. And this card is really interesting. It kind of gives me like Tactimon vibes from set 5, having like multiple effects that you can trigger multiple times during your turn that are all pretty decent. And when you use all three, you can gain a lot of advantage pretty quickly. That being said, multi-attacking plus 2000 DP and deleting a 5-cost or less isn't the most oppressive or powerful thing out of the gate, but over time, this could easily take over a board state. And in the future, we will get more specific Justymon support in set 10 with, I think, what it's called Catapult Arm or something, and that enables some really cool combos in this deck that could potentially let you out-aggress your opponent, which seems really valuable. One thing too I want to point out about Justymon is his synergy with other cyborg-based archetypes like D-Brigade, etc. But again, like almost every other archetype in this set, it revolves around tamer cards, and so there's like this eerie like Shine Greymon setup feel to Justymon before he can truly like steamroll and gain a ton of advantage. So in the immediacy of EX2 format, I don't think this card is that crazy, but I really like it and I'll be playing it. If you like it a lot, I recommend you pick it up because he will get support later down the line that could completely change what this card is capable of doing. Also, again, it's Justymon. I love black. I'm picking up 4. Up next, we have the purple cards, and the main archetype being supported is the gluttonous demon lord himself, Beelzemon. It's no surprise to anyone that I love the purple color, and I love like trash-based effects, and Beelzemon is no exception. In fact, he's one of my favorite incarnations of Digimon effects ever, cards that gain value for you when they are milled. This one says, when this card is trash from your deck, you may play one Itmon from your trash without paying its memory cost, and it still gets any on-play effects. Neat. Next, we have when Digivolving / when attacking. Kind of stole Justymon's thing there, but it's okay. You may trash the top 2 cards of your deck, then delete one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon. For every 10 cards in your trash, add 1 to the maximum level of the Digimon you can choose with this effect. Some basic math here. If you have 40 cards in your trash, you can delete a level 7 or lower. Go down accordingly. This card honestly is all right. It's a really powerful source for removal, but the main part of this deck is the fact that he can attack and constantly mill you. There'll be a payoff for that in a little bit, so I'll wait to give my judgment on this until we see that. The other purple SR is this guy, Golfmon, and I already gave you my sleeper color from this set. This is my sleeper card. Let me just read you this guy's Digivolve effect. All players trash cards in their hand until they have 5 cards left. That is potentially a scary effect. Right now and in the future, it's totally possible that we have Beelzemon, Yellow Hybrid, or some kind of crazy combo deck that draws a bunch of cards and tries to play a bunch in a single turn, roaming around the meta. This card being in purple, or even in potentially purple side decks, because that might be a thing that gets added to Digimon permanently, is scary. Imagine staring down your yellow hybrid opponent who has 12 cards in hand, and you say, hey, guess what? Get rid of 7 of those. That has to be strong at some point. So this is a card that I know it's kind of basic. It doesn't really like serve as the engine or the winning card for any big strategy right now, but it can be annoying as heck. And purple has shown that just having annoying toolboxy level 6s is good enough to do well, i.e. Creepymon from set 8. I actually really like this card, and I recommend you guys have at least 2 to 3 copies of it in your collection because you might regret it otherwise. Who knows, you might be surprised by how useful it ends up being. At this point in the video, it's time to talk about D-Reaper. If you guys made it this far and gotten any value, be sure to let me know by smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell with notifications so you know my videos go live for you. I promise we're gonna show off more inspiring and awesome things about Digimon, but right now, I've gotta talk about D-Reaper. First things first, we have the main star of the D-Reaper deck, the Mother D-Reaper Digi-Egg. Not only is this the first ever white Digi-Egg being released in Digimon, it is the first ever Digi-Egg that actually has its own effects versus an inheritable effect. Those effects are, all turns, this Digimon cannot attack and isn't affected by your opponent's effects. Main, once per turn, if you don't have another Mother D-Reaper in play, place one of your ADR02 searchers from your in-play or from your hand under this Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. There's a card in here called ADR Searcher. You take it from your hand or the board, put it underneath this. Your turn, once per turn, when you would play a card with D-Reaper in its traits from your hand, you may reduce its play cost by 1 for each of this Digimon's Digivolution cards. What you have here is an uninteractable resource engine that can effectively snowball you free Digimon after like turn 2. From there, you can do a multitude of things, whether that's a yellow base that has a ton of recovery cards that let you abuse your powerful security effects, whether it's a red or a black base that gives you extra ways to gain DP, interact with your opponent's board, or even have powerful on-deletion effects that can deal with any possible threat you could face up against. As of right now in Digimon, the only way to actually out Mother right here is by attacking over it with things like Black War Greymon with Metal Greymon Inherit, or Judgment of the Blades, a really cool option card that lets Royal Knights attack Digimon that are unsuspended. Anyway, let's talk about the actual D-Reaper cards. First things first, we have ADR Searcher. Now, you're probably thinking, Steven, okay, so she can -4 play cost the Digimon once per turn. Who cares? No, y'all, you can play up to 50 of these bad boys in your deck, and I promise you the average number is anywhere from 14 to 20, so you're reducing a lot more than that. Secondly, if that wasn't bad enough, this card can just draw you a card when it's played, and it actually has an inheritable effect, which you can stack underneath Mother D-Reaper to make all your other D-Reapers stronger. This is honestly a very powerful card, and unlike Eosmon from older sets, it's really good and worth having as many copies as you can squeeze into your deck. Weirdly enough, this entire strategy is built on commons, uncommons, and the one rare, and I actually think the most expensive part of your deck is going to be this card right here, because it's probably going to be at least $1 or higher as a common, and you need like 16 to 20 in your collection. So, yeah, definitely make sure you have enough money allocated for getting this card, otherwise you might be surprised by how expensive it actually is. And trust me when I say you need as many as possible. And then from there, we have a bunch of utility Digimon. We have searchers, we have dudes that can like be blockers, have rush, minus DP, but the one that's the biggest problem isn't even Reaper, isn't even the big like win con, it's Gatekeeper. This card is probably more broken and more oppressive than Ice Wall ever was. Firstly, he's a security Digimon, which means he gets played when he's checked. Secondly, on play, if you have a Mother in play, you can just recover 1, and then during your opponent's turn, while you have a Mother in play with 6 or more Digivolution cards, all your opponent's Digimon gets -1 security attack. So it's basically a Holy Flame that plays itself and then recovers 1 and is always around. Now you see why I call Mother a stall deck. Basically, you just have as many turns as possible, get as much reduction effects as you want, play as many Reapers as possible, and just blow your opponent out, or you could use the Big Daddy Reaper, attack multiple times, and kill your opponent that way. This is the most powerful and most self-contained strategy I have ever seen released in a Digimon set, and it is the reason I am covering EX2. Normally, I don't do side sets. Let's talk about secret rares. First things first, we have the big sort of boss monster, if you want to call it that, for the Gallantmon archetype in Gallantmon Crimson mode. This card is essentially the original Set 1.0 Gallantmon with the trashing security effects, but it's also a removal spell. On Digivolve, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP. I don't actually see Crimson mode as like the big payoff to the Gallantmon archetype. That card is for sure Takato, being able to gain you memory for deleting Digimon and give your Gallantmons Blitz, which does combo nicely with Crimson mode, being able to evolve into it and attack per game after trashing a lot of your opponent's security cards. Really neat. The purpose I see Crimson mode playing is as the best removal spell you could play in your Gallantmon deck. Kind of like Omnimon in the original Turbo Omnilist from 1.0, it is both a very powerful body that can win you the game by itself, but the second it comes into play, it greatly hinders your opponent's board and they have to answer it, and in the Gallantmon deck, you can do all of that while attacking and burning your opponent for a lot of damage. Really nice. I definitely view this as the least needed secret rare from the set, but I'd recommend you get like at least 2 if you plan on playing Gallantmon at all. But it's time, the star of the show, Beelzemon Blast Mode. Similar to Beelzemon and the other Impmon-based cards in this set, when this card is trashed from your deck, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. When Digivolving, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest level, similar to Gallantmon. Your turn, for every 10 cards in your trash, this Digimon gains +1 security. Again, basic math. If you've got 40 cards, that is +4 security. That is 5 big ones to the dome. This is looking to be one of the most aggressive purple archetypes to date, and it combos so nicely with other great cards that purple has, like Eismon, like Creepymon, which can give you win conditions against stall-based decks, i.e. decking them out. While Beelzemon is in no way an outstanding archetype, it is very self-contained, it is very explosive, and it can deal a lot of damage whenever it wants to, and right now in this format, that sounds pretty good. If you plan on playing Beelzemon, you're probably going to want anywhere from a playset of these to at least 2, because you do mill a lot, and having more copies in your deck is better than fewer. But I will caution you, he is going to be the most expensive card in the set probably, so it will cost a pretty penny, but I do think 4 is the recommended number. And honestly, besides the plugins, there really isn't much to talk about from the option cards. I think Bandai learned their lesson with Ice Wall. To wrap up, as always, during a must-have cards video, let's talk about the must-have alternate arts, or the best alternate arts in the set. Fun fact, I'm pretty sure this set had north of 70 cards, and there are 30 different alternate arts. Almost every card in the set comes alternate art. First things first, we have the obvious chase ones in Beelzemon Blast mode and Gallantmon Crimson mode. Beelzemon's better. We got all the tamers. I think the best one actually is Ai and Mako, because they're just so cute, and I love Beelzemon, so that's awesome. Up next, we have undoubtedly, unquestionably, unarguably the best alternate art in base Beelzemon. It is gorgeous. It is definitely the thumbnail of this video, and if you disagree, wow. And boom, that about wraps up all the must-have cards from EX2 Digital Hazard. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Peace.